Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make this adorable teacup mouse card. Oh my gosh, isn't this image just adorable? This stamp is from our sponsor, artneco.com, and it's from a gorgeous set of stamps, which I will link in the video description. And if you use the coupon code, the Frugal Crafter, you can save 10% off of your purchase, and they ship worldwide, which is really awesome. So I'm going to be using alcohol pens to color this in, and basically what you want to do for these leaves is to find 3 different shades of green. So I like to go in like the underlapping areas and put in a nice dark green. And then I'll go with a medium green, kind of overlapping that and pulling it out a little bit more. And then I go with just a lighter, more yellowy green out towards the edges. I'm going to repeat this process on all the mint leaves around this little teacup mouse, kind of nestling him in there. This is wonderful practice. And the more you practice, the better you get at them. And the more you can kind of skip around and color a couple leaves at one time. And you just get really, really quick and then good at that blending. The cardstock I'm working on is Neenah Classic Crest, and that type of cardstock, that particular brand, makes blending very easy. Here you can see I'm actually doing 4 leaves at once, putting in the darks, then the mediums, and then finally I'm going to do the lights. If you're working on a cardstock that does not want to blend quite as easily, then you can use, you can color it all in with the lights and then go dark, medium, light again. I'm going to be giving away the stamp that I'm using here today, actually a brand new one, on my website. So make sure you go to thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com to sign up to get into the prize draw. So I will be picking a winner in 1 week, so make sure you don't miss out on that. And I also want to let you know the markers that I'm using, the Spectrum Noirs, are on sale for $5 for a 6-pack, and each 6-pack has 6 colors that work within each other, that work with each other, so you have 6 different shades of pink or 6 different shades of green. So you end up getting those easy to blend color combinations that way. I'll put a link in the video description so you can go find those on sale as well. And there's no duplication between the packs, so that's really nice. I like that Spectrum Noir does that so that you can build your collection as your budget allows. Now on these smaller images here within the stamp, I'm not going to bother blending. I'm just using 1 shade of pink to go in and color all the flowers and all the little patchwork pieces and the little hearts on the quilt and the little patches on the pillow. It's very easy to do that when you're working in a small space. So for the face, I wanted to get kind of a little bit of face tone around the nose and ears, and then I wanted the fur to be gray, but I didn't want to have some weird harsh lines. So what I did first was I went over the entire face and ear with a light flesh color, and then I'm adding a little bit of pink in the cheeks, and then I'm blending it out with a lighter flesh color. So basically I like to put my darker flesh colors around the edge, blend it out with a lighter flesh color, and now I'm going in with a dark gray around the edges of the fur, and then I'm blending it in with a lighter gray. So again, this is something that takes a little bit of practice, but you can always practice on a scrap of paper before you bring it to your card. In fact, I tested all these colors on a scrap of paper before I started coloring. And again here, since the leaves are so tiny on the teacup, I didn't bother blending. I just colored them in with a light shade of green. I took that same dark tan color that I used on the skin and colored in the little teddy bear there that the mouse is snuggling with, and then I just grabbed that dark green pen and I filled in that little portion of leaf that I had left behind. And you can actually go in and do your branches brown, but I thought I'd use that same dark flesh color that I used for the teddy bear and on the mouse's face just to do all the branches, just because I'm using such a soft color palette that I didn't want anything to overpower it. Now, I had pulled out some shades of blue thinking I might want to use some blue on this, but I tested it out on my scrap paper there and it was just too dark. So I'm using this really, really pale blue to do the nightcap. I'm coloring around the stars there. And then I can also use that really pale blue other areas as well. Now, if you have a pale shade of color like this blue, and maybe you want to have another shade, but you don't, you can overlap your colors like I did on the inside of the cap. So keep that in mind when you're coloring. If you just want to go a shade darker, just let it dry, go over with another shade of that same color, and that will give you a beautiful blended look that will definitely match. Now for the yellow blanket, I'm taking this kind of golden yellow here, medium color. I'm coloring in the, like every other patchwork piece. And I colored in the folds of the turned over blanket part. Now I'm going over with that same color again, but where it colors over the folds, it will be a little bit darker. So I'm again using that layering technique. I'm going to do the same thing with this pillow. I'm using that same light blue that I used for the cap. I'm coloring in the shadows first, and then I'm just going to do a layer over that pillow when it dries. So just be a little patient, because on like this Nina cardstock especially, everything wants to blend, maybe more than you want it to. So I had to let it dry before I went over with another layer, and the look is very subtle. And you can keep layering it as much as you want. As long as you let it dry in between layers, you shouldn't get any feathering. And then I just filled in the pom-pom and the stars on the hat with a flat shade of yellow. So that's a nice thing about having tiny little images there. You don't have to worry about shading. I'm using a really pale gray, the same color I blended in from the fur to the face, and I'm putting shadows on the teacup. And along the edges, that helps make it seem a little round, and that way I don't have to go in with a bold color that may be just like distracting. And then I just use this pale blue to blend it out a little bit, and that's pretty much all you have to do for the coloring. I did want to add a little of that yellow into the teacup, so I just put it in the flower centers. And now we're ready to build our card. I started off by trimming down the panel that I colored so that it wouldn't be too big for my card. And then I'm inking the edges of that and a pattern paper panel with brown ink. And this pattern paper is by Company, and it's from the Madiline pack. The card I'm using is 5 inches by 7 inches, and it's craft, and I just made it myself. And now I'm going to adhere this paper onto the front. Now the paper panel is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4, so it fits a 5 by 7 with a little bit of border on the edge. I have a dilemma with pretty patterned paper that is printed on both sides, because I usually love both sides and they usually go really well together, so I don't want to just pick one side. So what I did was I took the scrap of paper left over from cutting that panel and I just tore a strip of it off, and then I'm just going to ink the straight edges that I didn't tear so that I can glue it on top of the panel, and it'll look kind of cohesive. But it's so pretty. How do you pick what side of the paper to use? I apologize if my voice sounds really scratchy. That's part of the reason I sped up the first part of this video, because I'm about to lose my voice. Now I'm gonna kind of play with a few different ideas here, because I've got a couple ribbons that I'd like to use. So I'm just trying to decide what I can actually fit on this card. I love this dainty little floral ribbon, but it's covering up so much of the beautiful pattern paper that I think it might be overkill. And I've also got some Raveled roses ribbon that I want to add on there too, but again, I'm covering up the pretty paper, so I'm just trying to figure out exactly where I want to put what. In the end, I decided that the dainty floral ribbon was just a little bit too much for this card, and I like the simplicity of having the buttons and the Raveled roses trim. I'm going to use zip dry glue to adhere my elements down. I'm really liking this glue because it's pretty thick, and if I do get too much glue, after it dries I can rub it off with my finger, so it's kind of nice. It's like a glue with an undo button, and I obviously need that. To add a little bit of flair to my buttons, I'm going to be adding some string, but before I do that, I have to adhere this main panel down. Since the Raveled Roses has so much dimension, I didn't want to use foam squares to attach my main panel, so that's going right directly on the card base. So I've got this hemp cord. This is actually a jewelry making supply, but I really enjoy it for card making because I don't have to thread a needle anytime I want to add some cord to my buttons. So I'm simply just going to poke it through the holes and tie it and trim off the excess. And I'm going to do that for each ribbon before gluing, for each button rather, before gluing it down. You can also just take the leftover scraps after you trim off a button and just feed those ends through the holes and glue it down, and that glue will just trap those loose ends so you don't even need to knot it, and you can use up every little scrap. Now when I've got something dimensional like that I need to dry, I just reach around for anything on my table to lay on top of it to let it dry, and this little tube of lotion is just the perfect thing to weight this down while it dries. Once you got them into position, just put something on there that's heavy and isn't going to move. So I'm going to glue that last button down, and then we are going to be finished. This zip dry glue does not take long to dry at all. Just a couple minutes later and I am ready to go here. And the only thing I have to do now is just trim off the excess ribbon. And I wish I had my ribbon shears upstairs because they would cut through this so much easier than these paper shears that I have. But you know, sometimes you're just going to make do with what you have. This ribbon does have like a little netting mesh that it's sewn onto it so it won't unravel on the card. So that's nice. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out my blog, thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com, so you can sign up for a chance to win the stamp I used. Thanks to artneco.com for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use the coupon code FrugalCrafter to save 10% on your order or get free shipping if your order is over 50. And those markers are on sale for $5 a pack. I'll put a link in the video description to that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.